Now, we, of course, begin with those unprecedented charges against Donald Trump, the former president pleading not guilty to 4 felony counts for allegedly engaging in a criminal conspiracy to overturn the 2020 election. Federal prosecutors say that Trump's lies culminated in the violence that we saw on January 6th. It all unfolded in the same courthouse where hundreds of January 6 defendants have faced their own trials, and then not far from that, where the riot itself took place. Trump also pleading not guilty himself in the courtroom before being released with a number of conditions. His next court date is scheduled for August 28th, and the judge just waived the requirement for Trump to be in attendance. Now, our team, of course, has been tracking all of this. Joining me now is ABC News' Jay O'Brien in Washington, contributor and senior Washington correspondent for Politico, Rachel Bade, and Jeff Robbins, attorney and former chief minority counsel to the U.S. Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. And thank you all for being with us. Jeff, starting with you, it's been about 24 hours here since the arraignment. Now that the dust has settled, give me your big picture breakdown here of what happened and where we go from here.
Well, you know, the former president has made a lot of hay professing to be honored, to regard it as a badge of honor to be indicted. He did not look all that honored when he was making remarks at Reagan's National Airport yesterday before boarding what is now, I guess, dubbed Arraignment 1, because the plane has gotten so much of a workout going from arraignment to arraignment. The fact of the matter is that I know more about arraignments than anybody else, believe me, is not exactly the campaign line of all campaign lines. And so, bravado or no bravado, he and his legal team are facing a very, very difficult, daunting situation. And in short, he is looking at spending the rest of his life trying to keep federal and state prosecutors from putting him in jail.
All right, he called it a sad day in America there. And, Jeff, the special counsel heard testimony from some of Trump's closest confidants and references even a lot of his own public statements originally highlighted by the January 6th committee. So how much will Trump's own statements play into this case?
They will play a great deal into the case. And the difficulty from the point of view of the special counsel will be selecting the public statements, because there are so many of them. And when you line up all those public statements by him, which basically are inculpatory, which are incriminating, and you basically look at the fact that in order to refute that, he is going to have to take the stand in his own defense, which he will never do, because for him to take the stand in his own defense would redefine the meaning of the phrase shooting fish in a barrel. He is, to use the barrel analogy, in quite a pickle.
All right. And, Jay, many Republicans are still defending the former president. That, of course, includes House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Here's what he said after the arraignment yesterday.
So, yeah, you can raise that someone raised a question. And you know, in America, you are entitled to raise a question. You're entitled to question whether it was honest or not. That's the uniqueness of the First Amendment. That's the uniqueness of America. But you know what? You shouldn't be prosecuted for your thoughts. And the difference here is, when Hillary Clinton said it, nothing happened to her. When they said it in Georgia's election, nothing happened to them either. You know what? When the DNC said it, nothing happened to them either. So stop using government to go after people who politically disagree with you. That is wrong, and that should stop now.
Jay, what do you make of what he said here and some of the echoes from other Republicans who see this as a political hit job?
Yeah, let's fact check one thing first. Hillary Clinton did express skepticism about the 2016 election because of Russian interference there. She expressed that skepticism into 2017, but a couple things she didn't do. She did concede. She did go to Trump's inauguration, 2 things that the former president did not do. And she also didn't have a plot that involved fake electors or exert pressure on the then vice president, who was Joe Biden, to throw out the results of that election. Now, when you go back to Speaker McCarthy, what he's saying there is that Jack Smith, in his analysis, is trying to criminalize what the Speaker says is First Amendment protected speech, political speech. And he said that Trump had the right to ask those questions, as he puts it in so many words. Now, what would Jack Smith say to that? We somewhat know the answer because, and not to put on too much of a show here, but he put it in the indictment. Page 2 of the indictment, if I may, because it is important, says the defendant, who's former President Trump, had a right, like every American, to speak publicly about the election and even to claim falsely that there had been outcome-determinative fraud during the election that he had won. He goes on to say that Trump, quote, also pursued unlawful means of discounting legitimate votes. That's what the indictment is about, not the speech, but the conduct, and that conduct that attempted to overturn the election and throw out votes.
You're exactly right, Jay. And Rachel, what does this tell you about the state now of the Republican Party?
I mean, the fact that a lot of Republican leaders right now are sort of twisting themselves into pretzels to try to come up with a defense for, their party leader, it shows that this is still Donald Trump's party. I mean, he is still king. And you can see that just, today, literally 24 hours after his arraignment, the entire Alabama congressional delegation has come out and endorsed Trump. These are lawmakers who, remind you, were running from the mob on January 6th, were afraid for their lives, and are still endorsing the former president the day after he's being charged for his actions that day. I do think it's interesting, though, when you look at some Republicans, not everybody is sort of defending him with the same bravado that they had before. I mean, there was a really great Washington Post story this morning that sort of compared some of the statements by Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida running for the White House in 2024, the RNC chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, who's obviously a senior Republican, what they said back in the spring when Trump was indicted for his role in the hush payment scheme to pay off women who were alleging affairs with him in the 2016 election, and what they're saying now. If you look at Ron DeSantis, back then he called it abuse of power. Now he's actually not commenting on the indictment specifically. Ronna McDaniel back then also said that this was totally unjust, and now she's actually not putting out a statement at all. So I do think it's kind of telling. You are seeing a little bit of a softening with some of these Republicans.
Well, Trump is leading the Republican Party essentially by a landslide when it comes to this nomination here. You've been doing a lot of reporting, though, about how Trump and his team have been working behind the scenes to help him win this Republican nomination. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so sources tell me that there has been sort of this behind-the-scenes quiet campaign by the Trump by Trump and his top aides around the country to change a lot of state rules to make it easier for him to win the nomination. It's a bit wonky and procedural, but it is important because in order to win the nomination at the convention, you have to receive a majority of, more than 2,000 GOP delegates across the country. What Trump's team is doing is leaning on a number of Republican Party chairs across the country to try to make it harder for rivals like Ron DeSantis to actually pick up delegates. And the way they're doing this is both sort of carrot and stick. I mean, in some cases, they're stirring up allies who are harassing some of these people. They're threatening not to have Trump attend some critical party lunches and meetings. And then in other cases, they're just leaning on his relationships that he's built up, calling in favors with folks. And he's been really successful in this effort so far, and it's a problem for people like DeSantis.
Oh, and you're seeing our friends at 538 point out that you're seeing some of those rule changes out here in California when it comes to delegates. So it's exactly sort of what you're talking about there. Jay, Rachel, and Jeff, our thanks to all of you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.